It was a small town, the kind where everyone knew each other's business, or at least thought they did. Ivy Lane Apartments stood at the edge of town, a modest brick building with peeling paint and creaky staircases. People came and went, but not much ever changed, except for room 302. Every night, precisely at 10:07 p.m., a lamp in the window of room 302 would turn on. It was always the same warm glow, soft and inviting, like an old photograph lit from within. It wasn't motion activated, it wasn't hooked to a timer, or so everyone said. But the strange thing was, no one lived there. The apartment had been empty for years. Emma Caldwell, a 28-year-old woman who had recently moved back to Ivy Lane after her mother's passing, noticed the lamp during one of her sleepless nights. She had returned home to sort through her mother's belongings, expecting a few weeks of quiet closure. Instead, the small town had wrapped her in a fog of old memories and unanswered questions. Emma's mother, Margaret Caldwell, had lived in apartment 204. 2 floors below room 302. Margaret was the kind of woman who baked pies for neighbors she barely knew and could silence an entire grocery store with a single raised eyebrow. She had passed away 3 months ago, and the grief still clung to Emma like a second skin. That night, Emma had been sitting on the fire escape, bundled in a sweater far too thin for the October air, sipping cold tea when she noticed it. 10:07 p.m. The lamp flicked on in the dark, empty apartment above. She frowned. She had passed by room 302 earlier that week. The door was padlocked, a notice from the property manager taped to the wood. Vacant, no entry. She would have ignored the light if it happened once, but it didn't. Every night, like clockwork, 10:07 p.m., the lamp illuminated the window, casting a golden halo against the night sky. Curiosity became obsession. She started documenting it. She set alarms, stayed up, and even jotted down the exact seconds the lamp turned on. No one else seemed to notice, or if they did, no one cared. The landlord, Mr. Rourke, shrugged when she mentioned it. 302's been empty since the previous tenant passed away years ago. Wiring's old, probably a glitch, he said, already turning his attention back to his newspaper. But Emma knew it wasn't just faulty wiring. It was too precise, too intentional. And that time, 10:07 p.m., it gnawed at her. She felt like she was missing something. One evening, after watching the lamp glow for the 3rd consecutive week, Emma couldn't sit still any longer. She threw on a jacket and made her way to the 3rd floor. The hallway was dimly lit, carpet muffling her footsteps. Room 302 stood at the end of the corridor, the door as unremarkable as any other. Yet the light inside made it feel alive. She pressed her ear to the door. Silence. But the lamp's glow was undeniable, seeping out from the gap beneath the door. Emma reached for the knob instinctively, but of course it was locked. Her pulse quickened. Was someone squatting there? Was this some elaborate prank? But deep down, Emma knew it wasn't. The feeling wasn't one of fear. It was something stranger, like nostalgia for a place she had never been. As she stood there, hand on the cold doorknob, she noticed a detail she had missed before. A small brass plaque, tarnished with age, affixed just below the peephole. It read, Margaret Caldwell, 1978 to 1983. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Her mother had lived here? For 5 years. Why had she never spoken about it? Emma had grown up in apartment 204. Margaret was never the type to hide stories, but this felt like a forgotten chapter that had slipped through the cracks of time. The lamp glowed on, soft, persistent, welcoming, and Emma knew, without fully understanding why, that this wasn't a coincidence. It was an invitation. Sleep was out of question that night.
Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling of apartment 204, the dim outline of her mother's old bookshelf barely visible in the moonlight. The memory of that brass plaque under room 302's peephole replayed in her mind like a haunting melody. Her mother had lived there for 5 years. Why had she never spoken about it? Emma had grown up in apartment 204. Margaret was never the type to hide stories, but this felt like a forgotten chapter that had slipped through the cracks of time. The next morning, Emma rummaged through the boxes she had been meaning to sort. They were filled with old photographs, letters, and a few items too sentimental to part with. Her mother had been a chronic organizer, yet somehow her past life in room 302 had been carefully omitted from the narrative Emma knew. At the bottom of a small wooden jewelry box, Emma found something curious. A key. It wasn't labeled, but it looked older than the apartment keys she had. The brass was dulled, but the ridges were sharp, precise, as if it had been waiting for use. Could it be? Emma's mind raced. If this key belonged to room 302, why had her mother kept it hidden all these years? She stared at the key, heart pounding, until the curiosity grew too loud to ignore. By evening, as the town settled into its quiet rhythm of porch lights and distant television sets, Emma made her way back up to the 3rd floor. The hallway was empty, save for the faint hum of the building's ancient boiler. The door to room 302 stood unchanged, the lamp behind it flickering faintly, as if acknowledging her return. Emma slid the key into the lock. It fit. A soft click echoed louder than it should have, making her flinch. She hesitated, hand on the knob, then slowly turned it and pushed the door open. The air inside smelled like dust and old wood, not decay, but preservation, like time had folded itself neatly and left the space untouched. The lamp was on, sitting on a small table near the window. Its light was warm, steady. The rest of the room was sparsely furnished: an old armchair, a bookshelf with worn spines, a small writing desk. Everything felt deliberate, as if someone had staged a memory and walked away. Emma stepped inside, half expecting the air to shift, for a ghost to materialize. But nothing happened. And yet the room felt undeniably alive. On the writing desk sat a notebook. Its cover was a faded maroon, the edges softened by years of handling. Emma's fingers trembled as she opened it. It was her mother's handwriting. Journal, 1978.
Tonight is my first night in room 302. I feel small, smaller than I've ever felt. But this space feels like it's waiting for something. Or maybe someone. I don't know why, but I brought the lamp from my parents' house. It feels like an anchor. Emma flipped through the pages. The entries were short, almost like whispers to herself. April 12th, 1979. I don't feel alone when the lamp is on. September 3rd, 1980. I wonder if my future child will ever sit by this window. Emma's breath caught. Her mother had sat here decades ago, imagining a child who didn't exist yet. And now, Emma stood in that same room, reading words written before she was even born. She looked up at the lamp. Its glow wasn't artificial. It was intimate, intentional, like a beacon waiting patiently for her arrival. But why now? Why, after all these years, had the lamp started turning on again? A faint sound broke the stillness, the soft ting of metal hitting glass. Emma turned toward the window and noticed something she hadn't seen before. Hanging from a nail on the window frame was a small wind chime, delicate, almost invisible. It swayed gently, though there was no breeze. Emma approached, and as she did, a fragment of memory surfaced. She was 6,
sitting on her mother's lap, listening to stories of a special room where wishes float in the air. Could this have been that room? Suddenly, the lamp flickered, not randomly, but in a rhythm, a pulse. 3 blinks, pause, 2 blinks, pause, 3 blinks again. Emma's chest tightened. It wasn't a glitch. It was a message. Emma sat frozen, watching the lamp as it blinked once more. 3 flashes, pause, 2 flashes, pause, 3 flashes again. She couldn't look away. It wasn't random. It felt deliberate, like a signal sent across time. She fumbled for her phone and typed into a search bar, Morse code, 3 short blinks, 2 short blinks, 3 short blinks. The result made her skin prickle. SOS. Her mother's lamp was blinking an SOS. But why and how? Emma's logical mind scrambled for an explanation. A faulty wiring coincidence? Maybe. But deep down, she felt it wasn't an accident. It was a message, not for the world, but for her. She flipped through more of the journal, desperately searching for answers. The entries were sporadic after the first year, but there were certain phrases that stood out. The lamp always turns on at 10:07, every night, even when I forget. I think of you when I see the light, even though you're not here yet. Light is memory, M. Her mother had left breadcrumbs, but Emma was only now seeing them for what they were. The time, 10:07. Why that time? She grabbed her phone again, scrolling through old family photos stored on the cloud. Birthdays, holidays, candid kitchen selfies. Then she found it. A photo of her mother in a hospital bed, cradling newborn Emma. The timestamp, 10:07 p.m. Her heart pounded. The lamp had been turning on at the exact minute of her birth, every night, for years, maybe even decades. Goosebumps rippled across her arms. It was as if her mother had hardwired her love into this old room, into that simple lamp, ensuring that no matter where she was, the connection would remain alive. Emma stood and approached the window. From this angle, she could see the narrow alley between buildings, the soft glow of the city beyond. She remembered being a child, pressed against her mother's side, listening to stories of a special room where wishes float in the air. She'd always thought it was just a bedtime tale, but now it felt real. The wind chime gave another delicate tinkle, not loud, almost like a sigh. She turned back to the lamp. The blinking had stopped. Its light was steady once more. But Emma knew now it had been waiting for her to see it, to understand. Her hands moved instinctively. She sat at the desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was an envelope, brittle with age. Her name was scrawled across it in her mother's handwriting. Emma, for when you find the light. She held her breath as she slid the letter out. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then somehow, against all odds, you found room 302. You found the light. I don't know what the world will look like when you find this. I don't know who you'll be. But I do know this. Love is not limited by time or space or even life itself. This lamp, it's not magic. It's memory. Every night at 10:07, it's my way of saying, good night, my love, even if I'm not there to whisper it. You were born into my arms at 10:07 p.m. on a cold November night. And in that moment, I promised myself that you'd never feel alone, that somewhere, somehow, a light would always be shining for you. If the lamp has brought you here, it means you needed to be reminded of that promise. So, my sweet girl, sit by the window, breathe, listen to the quiet. You'll find me in the hush, in the flicker, in the soft things that most people overlook. Love always, Mom. Emma pressed the letter to her chest, feeling her throat tighten. She had come to this apartment to escape, to wall herself off from a world that had grown too loud, too fast. But here, in this forgotten room, her mother had been waiting, not as a ghost, not in sorrow, but in love, in light. The lamp's glow seemed warmer now, less like electricity and more like a heartbeat. Emma sat down in the old armchair, facing the lamp. She didn't cry, not yet. Instead, she felt a strange peace settle over her, as if the room had exhaled. Her mother's good night had never stopped. Emma had simply stopped listening. But now the connection was alive again, and she wasn't going to lose it. Emma would climb the creaky stairs to room 302 just before 10 p.m., sit in the old armchair, and wait. Like clockwork, at exactly 10:07 p.m., the lamp would flicker to life, bathing the room in its soft golden glow. Sometimes it would blink, soft, rhythmic pulses, almost like breathing. Other times it would simply remain steady, casting gentle shadows that danced across the faded wallpaper.
She started talking to it. At first it felt strange, silly even. But the silence never judged. She'd tell it about her day, her frustrations, her loneliness, her memories of her mother that had faded at the edges. She'd confess things she hadn't said out loud in years. "I don't know what I'm doing, Mom. I feel lost, like I'm floating, but everyone else is anchored." The lamp blinked, once, as if acknowledging her. Emma smiled sadly. "You would have told me to get out of my head, wouldn't you? Go take a walk, touch some grass." The wind chime on the balcony jingled in response, a whisper-soft giggle in the air. Room 302, once a hollow space, had become her sanctuary. And yet, as comforting as the light was, it began to feel like it was waiting for her to do something, to understand something deeper. One morning, while reorganizing the boxes under the desk, Emma found an old cassette tape, labeled in her mother's handwriting. "For Emma, when you're ready." Her heart pounded as she searched for something to play it on. In a dusty corner of the building's storage, she found an old cassette player, the kind that clicked when you hit play, its speakers rough but honest. She brought it up to room 302, sat by the lamp, and slid the tape in. Her mother's voice filled the room. "Hey, Em, if you're hearing this, then I guess you found my little lighthouse." Emma smiled, blinking back tears. "I wanted to tell you a story," the voice continued, warm and clear. "When you were born, I was terrified. I didn't know if I'd be a good mother. But when I held you at exactly 10:07 p.m., I realized I didn't have to be perfect. I just had to be present. That's what this lamp is, a promise to always be present for you, even after I'm gone." There was a pause, the sound of a shaky breath. "I know life will get heavy, Em. I know there will be days when you feel like you're adrift, but you'll never be alone, because you're made of every good night I ever whispered. You're made of light." Emma pressed her hand against the lamp's warm glow, her chest aching with a bittersweet fullness. Her mother's voice continued, softer now. "And if you're still listening, it's your turn, Em. Someone out there will need your light too." That's how the chain keeps going. A mother's light doesn't stop with her daughter. It travels.
The tape clicked, stopping, but the words lingered, filling the room like a quiet song. Emma sat in silence, absorbing the weight of the message. For so long, she had been searching for a sign, something that would tell her where to go, who to be. But maybe the sign had always been within her. The lamp was just a mirror, reflecting back what was already there. That night, at precisely 10:07 p.m., the lamp lit up once again. But this time, Emma did something different. She opened the window. The cold air rushed in, carrying with it the sounds of the city. But above the distant hum of traffic, she could hear the faintest echoes of other lives, other rooms, other people also waiting for light. And in that moment, she understood what her mother meant. The lamp in room 302 wasn't just her connection to the past. It was a beacon. And maybe it was time to let others see it too. The following morning, Emma sat in the tiny coffee shop downstairs with a notebook open in front of her. Her mind was racing, but her heart felt steadier. The tape had shifted something inside her, a nudge from her mother not just to remember, but to do something with what she'd been given. Room 302 wasn't meant to be her private hiding place anymore. It was a message station. She pulled out her phone and hesitated. What was she even doing? She had no followers. She wasn't an influencer or a content creator. But the thought of keeping this to herself, this connection, this lifeline, felt wrong. Her fingers moved before she could second guess. She took a photo of the lamp glowing in room 302, the golden light spilling across the empty chair. Caption: There's a lamp in room 302 that turns on at 10:07 p.m. every night. No one lives there. But I think maybe it is still listening. Maybe you need it too. She hit post and closed the app, not expecting anything. But by the time she climbed back up the stairs, her phone was vibrating nonstop. People were commenting. I have a place like that, a bench in the park where my dad used to sit. I still go there when I miss him. My mom used to leave the porch light on until I came home. She's gone now, but that light, it still makes me feel safe. Thank you for this. Grief is so quiet. It's nice to know I'm not the only one still listening. Emma stared at her screen, overwhelmed. She hadn't expected anyone to understand, but here they were, strangers connecting over invisible threads of memory, of light, of loss, of love. That night, she returned to room 302 with a new idea. She brought Post-it notes and a pen. She wrote the first one herself. Who do you miss? Leave a message. The light will listen. She stuck it to the window. By the next night, there were 10, then 30. Notes of all colors and handwriting, fluttering like soft prayers on the glass. Names of mothers, fathers, lost siblings, friends. Messages filled with unsaid apologies, lingering gratitude, even jokes only the departed would understand. It wasn't just a lamp anymore. Room 302 had become a living memorial. Emma started reading some of them aloud during the quiet hours. My grandpa used to play the harmonica. I still hear it sometimes in the kitchen. I wish I had told you I was proud of you, Dad. Mom, you said stars were the freckles of angels. Are you up there making them smile? Each note, each whispered story added another layer to the room. The air felt thick, but not heavy, like the room itself was holding these memories gently, giving them space to exist. But it wasn't until the building's gruff maintenance man, Mr. Harlan, showed up that Emma realized how far this had reached. "I saw that post of yours," he grumbled, standing awkwardly in the doorway of room 302. "I didn't expect to cry before breakfast." Emma smiled softly. "It's not really my post anymore. It belongs to everyone now." He nodded, then hesitated. "My wife, she used to sit in this very room. She loved this view. Said the city looked less lonely from up here." Emma's breath caught. She had never known that. Mr. Harlan pulled a crumpled photo from his wallet, a younger version of him with a woman laughing in the sunlight by the window of room 302. "She's been gone 5 years, he said quietly. "But when that lamp started turning on again, I liked to think it was her way of saying she's still around, just keeping an eye on me." Emma felt a lump rise in her throat. She gently placed a post-it note next to the photo. "For Mrs. Harlan, who made room 302 less lonely." They stood in silence together, two unlikely guardians of a space that had become sacred. Emma realized then the lamp's light wasn't just from the past. It was current, it was present, and now it belonged to every person who needed to know that memories don't fade in the dark. They shine. For days, room 302 became a sanctuary for quiet visitors. People who had never spoken to Emma before now stopped her in the hallway, sharing stories of their own. Some funny, some heartbreaking, all human. The post-it notes covered every inch of the window, a mosaic of love and longing. Emma didn't feel alone anymore. But on a Wednesday night, at precisely 10:07 p.m., the lamp didn't turn on. Emma sat frozen in her apartment, her eyes locked on the darkened window. She stared for 10 minutes, then 20. Nothing. The soft amber glow that had been her ritual, her comfort, didn't appear. Her heart pounded. She threw on her coat and ran upstairs, keys jangling as she fumbled to unlock room 302. When she pushed open the door, the room was exactly the same. Chairs, table, lamp. But the silence felt wrong. The air was colder. The post-it notes on the window seemed to flutter with an unsettling stillness, like they too were waiting for the light. Emma sank onto the chair by the window, clutching the lamp's base as if it were a lifeline. Why tonight? Why now, after everything? A million irrational thoughts raced through her mind. Had her mother's spirit moved on? Had Emma failed to keep the connection alive? Tears stung her eyes, but she wiped them away, refusing to let panic take over. Then she noticed something. A small, blinking red light beneath the table. Emma crouched down, pulling aside the tablecloth. It was a motion sensor, wired delicately into the lamp's plug. What? Suddenly it clicked. This lamp wasn't turning on by accident. Someone had installed a timer and a sensor. Someone had been keeping this going. Not a ghost, not a haunting, but a human, a person. A chill ran down Emma's spine. Who? That's when she heard it. The creak of a floorboard. Outside. She spun around, heart hammering. A shadow disappeared around the corner of the hallway. Emma bolted after it, but by the time she reached the stairwell, whoever it was had vanished. The next morning, the maintenance office was closed. Mr. Harlan's phone went straight to voicemail. Emma paced her apartment, piecing things together. The lamp, the notes, the sensor. Someone had been orchestrating this. But why? And why would they stop now? Later that afternoon, a plain envelope was slipped under her door. No address, no stamp, just her name written in block letters. Inside was a note. "Thank you for reminding me why this mattered. I thought I was keeping the light on for someone else. Turns out It was for me, too. H. Emma's throat tightened. She realized that Mr. Harlan had been turning the lamp on every night. Perhaps it had started as a private ritual for his late wife, but when Emma noticed it, when she started sharing it with the world, it had transformed. What was once a solitary act of mourning had become a shared beacon of connection. But why stop now? Emma felt a surge of urgency. She grabbed her coat and headed for Mr. Harlan's apartment. When there was no answer, she knocked again, louder this time. Finally, the door cracked open. Mr. Harlan stood there, eyes red, face etched with exhaustion. He sighed, motioning for her to sit. His apartment was modest, cluttered with memories, framed photos of a life built over decades, now tinged with loneliness. I came here after my wife passed, didn't have the heart to leave. Room 302 was her favorite. She used to sit by that window every night, reading or just watching the city. I started turning the lamp on after she died. At first, it was for her. Then, I'm not sure when it became for me. Emma listened in silence. When I saw you noticing it, sharing it with the world, it felt like her memory wasn't just mine to carry anymore. But last night, I thought maybe it was time to let it go. Thought maybe you had what you needed. Emma's heart ached. I don't want it to end. And I don't think your wife would either. What you started, it's bigger than both of us now. It's not just a light in a window. It's a lighthouse for anyone feeling lost. Mr. Harlan's lips quivered into a tired smile. That's what she used to say, that we can be lighthouses for each other. Emma reached over and took his hand. Then let's keep it lit. Together. That night at 10:07 sharp, the lamp in room 302 glowed once more. But this time, it wasn't automatic. This time, Emma and Mr. Harlan were there, side by side, flipping the switch with quiet reverence as neighbors watched from their windows, holding cups of tea, holding memories, holding space. The light had never been brighter. In the weeks that followed, the window of room 302 became a canvas of community. What had started as a small cluster of Post-it notes had grown into a kaleidoscope of colors, hundreds of tiny messages layered on top of each other, fluttering like soft whispers every time the window creaked open. People from the building and even passers-by from the street stopped to read, to write, to leave a piece of themselves. Emma made it a ritual. Every evening, she and Mr. Harlan would meet in room 302 around 9:45 p.m. They'd read new notes, share stories, and at 10:07 sharp, they'd flip the lamp on together. The stories were raw and beautiful. For my sister, who taught me how to be brave before she lost her fight. For my dad, who used to hum this silly tune every night at dinner. For myself, because sometimes I forget I deserve to be remembered too.
Each message carried a name, a heartache, a joy. It was as if room 302 had become a confessional, a safe space where people could unburden their hearts without fear of judgment. Emma realized something. This wasn't just about her mother anymore. It wasn't just about Mr. Harlan's wife. This was about all of them, all of their unseen stories, quietly needing a window. One Saturday afternoon, Emma decided to take it a step further. She printed small cards and placed them in a basket outside room 302's door, alongside a pen and a simple sign that read, "What would you like to tell someone you've lost? Write it down. Leave it here. Light travels further than you think." By evening, the basket was overflowing. Emma and Mr. Harlan spent hours that night reading through every message. Some made them laugh, some made them cry. All of them made them feel connected. That same evening, as they stood by the window, a soft knock came at the door. It was a young man, maybe 20, holding a crumpled envelope. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said nervously. "I've walked past this window for weeks. My mom used to live in this building. I didn't know where else to bring this." Emma welcomed him inside. He looked around, taking in the lamp, the notes, the quiet reverence that filled the room. He handed her the envelope. He said, "I found this in my mom's things after she passed. It's a letter she wrote but never sent. To me. I thought, maybe this is where it belongs." Emma opened the envelope carefully, the paper fragile with age. "Dear Jamie, if you're reading this, it means I never found the right time to say these words. I hope you've forgiven me for the times I failed. I hope you know you were always the best part of my life. And if I never said it enough, I love you. Always have, always will." Jamie's voice cracked. She never said those things out loud. I needed to hear them, even if it's too late. Emma felt a lump in her throat. "It's not too late," she said. "Why don't you read it here, out loud? Let her hear it." Jamie sat in the chair by the window, unfolded the letter, and began to read. His voice was shaky at first, but as he spoke, the words filled room 302 with something profound. It was as if the walls were absorbing his grief, turning it into light. Mr. Harlan stood in the corner, head bowed, while Emma watched from the doorway, her hand pressed gently against her heart. When Jamie finished, there were no words, but there was the lamp. At 10:07, they switched it on together. That night, Emma realized that room 302 wasn't just a place where people mourned. It was a place where people healed. The first snow of the season dusted the city that evening, softening the edges of the streets and muffling the usual hum of traffic. From the window of room 302, the world outside looked like a different place, quieter, gentler. Emma stood by the lamp, watching as the familiar glow of 10:07 p.m. approached. Tonight felt different. It had been exactly 1 year since the lamp first turned on without explanation. 1 year since Emma began chasing shadows and whispers, only to find a community of souls carrying stories they didn't know how to share. But now, room 302 wasn't a mystery. It was a memory keeper. Mr. Harland entered the room carrying 2 mugs of tea. His gait was slower these days, but his smile was the same. "They're saying on the news that people across the city are lighting candles tonight, in windows, on doorsteps. They're calling it the light for the ones we miss." Emma's heart swelled. She never imagined that one small lamp switched on at 10:07 could ripple into something this vast. It wasn't just a ritual anymore. It was a movement. As the clock ticked closer to the moment, people began gathering outside the building. Neighbors, friends, even strangers who had heard about room 302's light. Some held candles, others clutched photos. All of them looked up at the window where Emma stood. Eli was there too, Mrs. Wren's grandson, holding a candle for his grandmother who had passed quietly just a few weeks ago. Emma had helped him write a note that still fluttered on the glass. "I'll keep reading our stories, Nana." The clock struck 10:07. Emma's hand reached out, fingers brushing the switch. But she paused. "Would you like to do the honors, Mr. Harlan?" asked softly. He stepped forward, his eyes misty. "I think it's your turn, Emma. You brought this place back to life." Emma smiled, and with a steady hand flipped the switch. The lamp in room 302 illuminated. A soft golden glow that seemed to stretch beyond the glass, beyond the bricks, beyond the night itself. Down below, a wave of lights answered. Windows flickered to life, candles raised gently into the winter air.
a symphony of light, breathing warmth into the cold. In that moment, Emma felt her mother beside her, not as a ghost or a distant ache, but as a presence, a hand resting on her shoulder, a whisper in her ear. "You see, Emma, love finds its way." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sorrow, they were gratitude. Room 302 had given her back something she thought was lost, the ability to feel connected, to feel seen. Mr. Harlan placed a note on the window, the last one for the evening. It simply read, "Some lights never fade." As the crowd slowly dispersed, Emma and Mr. Harlan sat by the window in comfortable silence. "What now?" Mr. Harlan asked, sipping his tea. Emma looked out at the city, the glow of countless windows still shimmering. "Now," she said, "we keep the light on." Because she had learned that the most powerful goodbyes aren't spoken in words, they're lit in windows.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and leave a kind comment. To help the channel stay motivated to create more great videos, please hit the subscribe button. Wishing you happiness and peace in the light and love of God.